Raul and I are talking about pricing. Everyone is scared of touching it. Every consultant is telling you to change it and tweak it all the time. But what is our experience from pricing changes that drove literally millions of dollars of revenue? And most importantly, what is it we would have liked to know before we did that?
If you can change pricing in the right way, it can be one of the most cost-effective things you can do all quarter long. You can work yourself to the bone with all kinds of other things you could be doing, but if you invest time and make the right pricing changes, you could make so much money just with that.
People are quite afraid to make a step there, which is why a lot of successful pricing projects I've seen had to come from the CEO, because the CEO was the one who was like, okay, nobody's going to fire me. Either the board is going to ask me to step down, but at least I know that if it's not me, nobody else is going to touch this.
If there's a dumpster fire and you're standing next to it, it doesn't matter whether you caused it, you're still going to smell like shit. And he's right about that. So, Mr., you're back from Las Vegas. How was that?
It was awesome, man. You might be following that, but I played the Magic Pro Tour, which is basically like a world championship. There's 3 of them a year. Ended up placing not so badly, by the way, around 40th place out of around 400 people. Most of which, by the way, are full-time Magic players. So I'm quite happy to be able to keep up with them. Qualified also for the next World Cup again in September.
So it's really like, the PGA Tour for golf and the US Open for tennis, right? So, I think that's basically what this is, just maybe with a different price pool attached. So what we wanted to talk about today is, I think, a topic that everyone is always dreading. They're always playing with it in their mind. They're always thinking about it. But everyone from CEO, COO, sales leader, RevOps, everyone is always dreading pricing changes. Yeah. like always. Today kind of talking a little bit why this is and why it's also silly that everyone is dreading it, right? Because clearly, if you can change pricing in the right way, it can be one of the most cost-effective things you can do all quarter long, right? You can work yourself to the bone with all kinds of other things you could be doing, but if you invest time and make the right pricing changes, you could make so much money just with that, and basically don't spend any resources, at all almost in order to kind of get this done. So I think it's always super enticing, and it's kind of funny how dreaded it is, though, right? I'm not sure what your experience was with some of the pricing changes you've seen, but like the set default is, it could be great, but I'm kind of worried about it.
I think a lot of what makes people scared of it, and to some extent also justifiably so, is the scale of change that they immediately see when they think about pricing.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a little bit of a crutch in the way of actually achieving business results. Is pricing doesn't have to be this 6-month, I'll get my old buddy from business school, consultant friend in and pay them this much money and do all that mathing and all that stuff. It doesn't have to be that necessarily. There's a lot of components that you could implement in a week and then just see how they work and whether or not they pan out, and then go from there. So I think just the shifting your mind to maybe being a little bit more fragmented with this topic, maybe a bit more iterative thinking, is probably quite helpful, because then you're also thinking a bit more like your other problems that you're having with your early stage or Series A startup.
Yeah, but let's just say kind of all the pricing stuff is always super exciting, right? Because you get more money for kind of the same thing that you did before.
Yeah.
Great, right? It basically improves all your unit economics. Everything is wonderful. Research is telling folks that they actually should be looking at pricing every 3 to 6 months. By the way, I've never seen that anyone do outside of like a HubSpot or something like that. I've never seen anyone do that. From your perspective, your experience, why aren't people touching pricing so often? Why is that? If we can maybe disagree whether or not you should do it every 3 months, but you should definitely do it more often than people are doing it. I think that's at least clear for me. But from your perspective, why is it people don't touch pricing that often?
So obviously the number one thing is you're just scared of either losing existing customers or not getting future business or not converting opportunities that you're having in the funnel, or either now or in the future. So this is the most obvious, right? And for sure, because typically when we're talking pricing, people are always thinking about increasing prices. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case, by the way. So reworking pricing can also be that you're reworking a little bit of one package and then maybe putting a bit less effort on the other package. So maybe actually you're turning a profit maker a bit bigger and then another one a bit smaller. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that you're only increasing prices. But alas, either way, you might lose some customers.
Yeah.
So the equation here is there's kind of a trade-off, and there must be a sweet spot where you might be losing some customers, but from the existing and future customers, the increased revenue you're making from increasing prices is still outweighing that. Yeah. And finding that equilibrium is what makes people so anxious, I believe, and just being so erring on the side of caution there.
I think that's already kind of the mathy, nerdy next step. Those are maybe some RevOps folks that are listening and are thinking about this. Oh, there's probably an equilibrium between churn, LTV, and discounts we're giving and CAC we're spending. And there certainly is. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. But I think another thing that I usually see go really, really wrong, or at least I was scared of it. And maybe at this point I was VP of Revenue Operations, so commercial operations, actually, that's what we call it. I was scared of it because, oh no, all the salespeople are gonna hate this. Like the amount of work kind of you put into this thing and the amount of pushback you get from everyone, it's just a dreadful project to be assigned to. And the thing is, when I got this the first time around, I was like, really, I wanted to do pricing. Then I went through with it once, and I think that's when I, decided. I also had the talk with a founder the other day. He was like, Tony, to kind of need some help with pricing and packaging. You know what? That's not me. I'm not going to touch that right now because it's a difficult project too, right? And I think that's the other reason. It's trying to maneuver something like that is going to touch your marketing. It's going to touch sales. It's going to touch CS. It's going to touch your finance folks. It's going to definitely touch your CEO, what he wants to do or she wants to do. And just trying to manage this project, that alone is, let's just say, has a lot of risk attached to it, right? And I would say one of the worst outcomes is to try and do some, decision by committee, and we're just doing everyone a little bit, and then on the last mile, the VP of sales has a change of heart. It's like, no, I talked to the sales rep, we can't do it like that. I mean, it's the risk just in the execution of this project, I think, is tremendous, actually. And
also the personal risk to the person who's kind of in charge of that project. So if you're, let's say you're a VP of product, or maybe you're a CFO or something, and you're suggesting this and it's not going through, well, that might have just been your death sentence for this job at this particular company. I think, by the way, that's not necessarily true. So it's not like every single time a price project fails that person gets axed. But in people's minds, I think this is such a big one that people are quite afraid to make a step there, which is why a lot of successful pricing projects I've seen had to come from the CEO. Because the CEO was the one who was like, okay, nobody's going to fire me. Either the board is going to ask me to step down, but at least I know that if it's not me, nobody else is going to touch this.
So quick anecdote and then question, actually. So you talked about the impact on someone's career, basically, if you run this project and it's not going well. And I was kind of discussing this with a previous co-founder of mine. He had the best way to put this, basically, like, Tony, if there's a dumpster fire and you're standing next to it, it doesn't matter whether you caused it, you're still going to smell like shit. And he's right about that, right? Kind of that is going to have an impact on you. And my question though is, like, you talked about, like, hey, it would be great if the CEO is driving this. Who owns pricing, actually? Who is responsible for this thing?
So I posed this to you. Actually, I'm curious about your experience here, because what I can tell you is what I've seen is everyone's arguing about this, and that's one of the issues, again, which leads to a lot of people not touching this problem, is nobody feels responsible. I know you've dealt with that, so how have you solved this problem? Who owns this?
So I think this was one of the mistakes I made several times, and I think this would be one of the lessons learned here for today, is like, I think in the absence of anyone owning it, probably it's going to be the CEO that owns it, or at least feels like he or she has the final say, which is something that just needs to be cleaned up. I think one learning coming out of that for me is, I had a product marketing team that basically kind of had someone doing research, because we were like on 5 or 6 different markets, and there was so much competition and so much comparison going on. So we need to figure out what was the pricing point for each market. So we actually started to develop and deploy lots of intelligence, to make the right call, which, by the way, made everyone feel more at ease. Like there's a lot of psychology in this. Just feel like, oh yeah, no, this, people thought about this. But what I can say is, whatever size you have in the organization, whether it's 50 people or 500, try and have a dedicated group of people that is, let's just call it the steering committee on this thing. And it doesn't mean that you have 5 VPs that are full-time on this thing. It just means that it is a team that has authority in the organization, that, includes a VP of sales, includes maybe VP of finance or something like this, that meets on a regular basis and has some more junior person, basically prepare material and keep them up to date. And that committee actually should, have the authority and have the drive to change some of the pricing that then can spawn an actual project coming out of this. But basically kind of creating somebody in the organization that carries the authority and the workload of, I think we need to adjust something here, right? And the thing is, keep in mind those adjustments, why do they come up? What kind of precedents do you have when adjustments come along? Well, could be competitive pressure. It could be new products being rolled out. It could be new learnings about how people are buying or consuming your product that, leads you to reshuffle the packaging a little bit. It could be inflation. That can be one of those things too. It could be so many things. It could be you have an acquisition and you need to fold that thing in, and it's like, is it part of a plan? Is it an add-on? Is it a completely separate product that we're cross-selling? There's lots of thought that needs to go into this. And I found as a CRO, it was actually really good to be like, hey, this sounds like a you guys problem. When are you going to come with a recommendation here, right? Because otherwise, no one's going to pick this thing up. Everyone is going to tell you, ooh, Raul, all of these things is pretty complicated. We should do something about it. But there's just no one that is doing it, right? So long story short, I don't think anyone in most organizations is actually responsible for pricing. And I don't think it's useful to say like, you're the VP of pricing, but I think it is useful to create some kind of a governing body, to say it in even more weird terms, that basically has the responsibility to look after it on a recurring basis.
And frankly, that's also where these consultants can come in, right? So that's part of the old trope of, well, we get a consultant in, so someone has to own this damn topic, which nobody else will. And then we can also blame someone later on, right?
Yes.
Have you worked with consultants on this topic, or was it always on your own?
So one of the very successful consultants in Europe actually pitched me back then when I was executing a successful pricing project in the organization. And maybe I tell more about this, but he pitched me back then. He was quoting me, and I was like, are you insane? I just walked away from this thing. But ultimately, the thing with pricing consultants is you can really see this as a cost-benefit equation. Like let's just say you take a lead gen consultant. It's like, yes, they're going to maybe generate 10,000 leads, but how much revenue is that going to be, right? You don't know. Like maybe it's shit quality, maybe it's good quality. You don't know. Go further closer to the revenue. A coach for the sales team, pretty close to the team now, but did he or she really drive that incremental additional amount of revenue? Like, I'm not sure. Pricing consultants, dude, this is black and white. It's like you can, from one day to the next, you can say this incremental amount of revenue came from that person that, suggested the change, right? So they can really go into this like, okay, if I pay this guy, and let's just say, a small number, like 100,000 euros, which is basically what these guys are asking for. But I make 5 years on the back of it. It's kind of, I'm still good. I'm in the green basically. And then people are like thinking like, Tony, 5 million euros. How big of a shop do you need to be? And the answer is not that big actually. The trick here is that, and this was one of my experiences. we were executing a price change, a really dumb one, a really dumb pricing change, where we basically took every one subscription and increased it by 5% or something like that. Like that's what we did across the board. And we were at 20 million, and then, you know, that 5% jump just made a lot of money, you know, was across 20 million ARR, 5% from one day to the next was just a changed invoice basically that went out, was massive, right? I can talk a little bit more how we executed this, and we basically had no pushback. But while this was a dumb change that got a lot of money, if we had invested a lot more time instead of just increasing prices, but actually repackaging, putting way more thought in this, and maybe even in some areas pushing the price even further up, because I think we could have done that, I think there would have been a 10-15% hike in there. So that guy probably would have been worth hiring in the end. So this is on the cost benefit of some of those consultants. I think the other thing is, you know, some of the fear, uncertainty, doubt that people are having with this topic, it's really well being answered, I think, by some of those consultants that make you feel confident about this change. They present you with all kinds of numbers, all kinds of research, all kinds of stuff. None of that actually maybe matters, but it makes the person, the decision maker in the end, feel better about the change.
And that's what gets the change done.
Yes, exactly. It's important.
Right? So the fact alone that someone projects that confidence, and maybe that's what you pay them for, is what gets your ass to move, and then is what gets you the money. So at the end of the day, even though maybe the knowledge that they brought you is not that big, and man, like I've had this kind of project where just the fact alone that we were there was even another consultancy there. It was not a pricing project, but the fact alone that there was several people who are like, we know that this is what you need to do. This is the thing. We've seen this before. We've seen this and that, the other. Just made it so that people finally were, okay, we have to do this. Like this is what gets you moving. And that was worth the money. What I think is funny about this, this whole pricing topic, right? So at the end of the day, in this fear that we're in, we're actually making things so complicated that if you kind of put them into a 10th grade economy or like business school book, are so simple. Little Susie here is selling a lemonade at her lemonade stand, and she's buying the lemons for $1, and she's buying the water for 50 cents, and she wants to make some profit, so she sells it for $2. And then little Timmy down the street is also opening his stand, and he lowers the price to $1.90, and so Susie goes to $1.80, right? Typically, these kind of mechanics are, you can put them in a school book for high school kids, and they will kind of grasp the basics of it. What's different about the world we're in, and obviously this is a super simplification, is that we're in this kind of free-for-all, everything goes, VC-funded world very often, where prices are not necessarily meant to make you profit, at least not for now. Prices are supposed to make you maybe grow or maybe position yourself or maybe, I don't know, whatever, package you so that you jump into the next tier. But because the business fundamentals are not necessarily you running a lemonade stand needing to make a profit, that's what makes everything so muddy all of a sudden. I think with the move back to, and obviously there's many reasons, I oversimplified this there, but I think with the move and a trend back to maybe a little bit less VC funding, or even companies running completely without VC funding and aiming for that to stay this way, maybe pricing will become a bit easier in the pure essence of, hey, we're having 10,000 in our bank account. If we want to survive for another year, we need to make profit. This is what that would look like on the pricing scale. Do you think that the move away from VC money or towards more austerity or towards more profit-driven way of growth will make pricing easier?
No. I don't actually. I know. I let you walk right into that door. No. I don't think so. I think, many of the fundamentals kind of stay the same. I think we've, been for a long time at value-based pricing anyway. And what is value-based pricing, right? Kind of, you can maybe have an anchor. Again, what I think is super crazy, you see those companies, Replit and Lovable and so forth, scaling to 100 million AR in 20 minutes or something like this. But they're operating at a loss. They're 30 people, $70 million of revenue, and they're operating at a loss. It's like, okay, so your pricing must be weird then, But you know what? This may, as it may, because they want to grow and what have you. I think what I think is a little bit more tangible for people is this logic that we talked about in the beginning of the show. It's like there are kind of different levers here you can look at, right? Kind of to smell out, am I pricing too expensively or not, right? And one of those guys, shout out to Rui, we were over beers talking about this, and he was like breaking it down basically super simple. Sue in the lemonade stand could probably also tell that story. But he was saying, what's your churn? Is it, what's your GRR? Is it more or less than 93%? And it's like, whatever, it's more. It's like, okay, if it's more, you need to increase pricing. like very, very simple, basically, kind of saying, and, he oversimplified, and it's a great way to pitch it in a simple way. But there is a relationship between the pricing you charge and, the retention you see, right? If you seeing too many people being too happy with your product, that gives you an opportunity to increase prices. If you then on the back of that see a little bit of churn drop, that's kind of okay, but probably in the grander scheme of things, you will have made more money, period, right? And I think for people that are worried about getting going with this can be, and I know not everyone has, GR greater than 93% or something like this, but this can be a way of thinking about like, oh geez, we do have an opportunity here to do something about it. We see it in our gross retention rate numbers. We see it in how happy people are. We see it maybe on competitive side. I think those three things together bring us to the point that we should do something about pricing, right? And that will be a complex, project afterwards coming out, because the first thing you're going to, do if you haven't touched pricing in, 5 years is collect the data, clean up all the data. And alone that, people will just be like, you know what, actually, I don't want to deal with this thing. Can we just move on and do something else? But like there will some complexity comes out of that, VC backed or not. I think that's my thinking here.
So what I like about that is, I think, again, the simplicity of things is what, in this topic, is really what can get people to move and to actually act. And not in every topic, actually, this kind of simplistic advice is really helpful. But I think in this area, this is sometimes exactly what the doctor ordered. Yeah. So something simple as, hey, Susie, you're selling out every single day at $2. How about, or you're selling out even before 5 p.m., so you're even running out of lemons every single day. How about you go to $2.50? It's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, uncle. Right? So just the simple advice here. Obviously, in the execution, it's a bit more difficult. But I think it's actually maybe exactly what the doctor ordered there, just as a mental model.
All the CROs listening right now, now I get it.
So it sounds like I'm making everyone sound dumb. I don't think so. I think these are all smart people, but it is very easy, and especially this topic, to just blow everything up so much that you forget the fundamentals.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And to be also so scared of the execution.
What is it, paralysis analysis, something like this? I think we had a couple of other things we wanted to tick off, like lessons learned from some of the projects we kind of took out. I think the first one we talked already about, churn and pricing, LTV, there is a relationship here. I saw a pretty nerdy post the other day from Ulrich from Willingness to Pay, and he was talking about, net present value calculation, and it's better to get money now versus later. There's some mathy shit that you can do if you really want to, but there certainly is a relationship. My pushback to him, by the way, was, well, churn is not only a function of pricing. You can't just, more pricing goes up, churn goes up too. That's not necessarily, it's not a direct relationship, right? We talked about consider external help. I think that's a thing. Another thing that I just want to kind of tick off on here, people should realize that there's a difference between a packaging change, which can come with a pricing increase, and just a pricing increase. I worked with a company that basically kind of raised their Series B on the back of this. They, over the course of 2 years, implemented 8 pricing hikes, like every quarter. They just increased pricing for everyone. And obviously the net retention looked, wow, like crazy good. And everyone was like, we need to give these guys money right now. But they overdid it. Like they totally and they kept pushing because they wanted to have this funding round, obviously. And then funding was in another quarter, and suddenly churn just broke loose like crazy, right? Because they just overdid it. I think if they would have spent more time in thinking about repackaging instead, because they were underpriced, like that was clear. But if they had thought somewhat, time on thinking about packaging instead, I think they could have probably maintained that revenue and pushed it even further up without kind of running to this other issue, right? What are other things you've learned from pricing and packaging projects you run?
What you just talked about, I will connect this kind of to my story as well, which is pricing a lot of times is also about narrative. Right, so you can't, or any kind of change in pricing, any kind of packaging, there has to be a narrative behind it. And first of all, the narrative internally, of course. I think we've talked at length about this right now, but the narrative outside. And that is what pricing and packaging reflects. So, hey, we're moving up price, but this is what you're getting for it. That's the base narrative. Or we're actually changing strategies within the company. Look how much more premium we've become. Look how much more strategic we now are. Yeah. Look how much better we are actually now at this thing. Or we've introduced a new feature. This is going to blow your mind. This is going to change everything, right? So the narrative, it's what's in the front. The pricing is kind of just the music behind and the scenes, right? So, and I think this is what's really important when you roll it out. The successful pricing projects, and again, I'm not a pricing expert like at complete depth, but the things that I've really seen work well were always a narrative-driven thing towards the customer, where the pricing was just, oh, by the way, now this costs $3.99 instead of $2.99. Yeah. And this is kind of like the Apple kind of way, right? So here's one more thing, the turtleneck sweater presentation, the big announcement, and everyone gets excited for the thing, and then the pricing is just an afterthought.
I gotta say, kind of as you have the external story, actually, because you said that, it triggered in me there's usually also a need for an internal story, right? And basically, kind of last time I rolled out a big pricing change, I stood in front of the whole org and had to I basically had to defend why we're doing a pricing change, because everyone was like, what the fuck? My main point was actually we hadn't done any pricing changes in like 5 years, so like a lot of time. And I basically kind of asked everyone in those 5 years, with all the development resource we put into this, by the way, it's a team of 50 people, did we improve our product by 5%, yes or no? And like everyone was like, yes, more than 5% actually. It's like, exactly. And that's why kind of increasing prices by that amount is totally justifiable, right? And I think bringing a story that is internally also, because people need to buy it in order to sell it, right? Internally, it needs to be connected to true value improvement, that then makes this a fair bargain for them, right? In their minds, and then kind of also presenting that to customers.
Here's another word for story, and that's one of my two learnings there: strategy, right? So the pricing narrative link is as strong, or even stronger maybe, than the pricing strategy link. And so that's the first story that I've seen where typically everyone is like, and you just talked about that too, it's like, oh, our product became better, that's why we're improving pricing, or we haven't done so in a while, that's why we're improving pricing. I've actually seen scenarios where a company were deep in the gutter, like fighting for survival, barely making it to the next round, maybe asking for a transitory round just to make it throughout the year, and thinking about correctly, in my opinion, increasing prices. Now, why was that? Part of the reason in this particular case was that the company, after 2-3 years, just realized that their product was not suitable for the segment that they were really thinking about. They had to move upmarket. So they had to move into more enterprise, or whatever you want to call it, corporate sector. With that also coming an increase in the demands of the product, but also the service that came with the product. So meaning the onboarding, the customer success service, and all that. So what happened was that they basically, over a year or two, without actually realizing, were moving upwards, the kind of corporate and enterprise realm, also moving their product strategy upwards, moving the value that they were delivering upwards, but not pulling up with the pricing at the same time. And that kind of the pricing was what then triggered the whole, well, this is actually what we're doing now, and now let's go full all in on this for a year, and if we don't make it, cool, but this is what we do now. In this particular case, I'm not sure that it was only the pricing, but the pricing is what actually triggered the whole strategic shift up market, and the company did survive at the end.
So the thing is, I think this is a much deeper piece actually, because that was really a go-to-market motion change, go-to-market fit change that then was accompanied by a pricing adjustment too, right? I just want to tick off two quick other things that, I want to make sure we get in here. One is, if you're worried about rolling out pricing changes, especially in the sales-led motion with sales teams, think about phasing them in. So instead of shifting everyone on your customer base onto new pricing, maybe you start selling in Q1 on new pricing, and maybe then renewals in Q2 get new pricing, and so forth. Kind of as you layer this in, you will, learn a little bit more. You don't bet the whole farm on this one change, and it will probably go through with less uproar, most in your own ranks, I would say, right? Because salespeople are always worried that they're then going to lose on price or something like this. And then my last one, I'm not sure if you have one more, but my last one is like, you can also test it out in different markets. You can go to a smaller market, different segment, different industry, however you break up your go-to market, and maybe try the new pricing out there first. Like do that maybe first, see how people are reacting, ideally record those calls, ideally kind of get intelligence from this. Maybe you look at, buying active now that I'm at it, but basically kind of using that intelligence to see like, did my pricing change go through? Kind of, is it triggering issues? Are people shouting back at our reps? And having that kind of do some more intelligence on that stuff, basically. Did you have one more story item here?
So last story here, and I think this is a short but big one. One of the most beautiful pricing projects that I've seen, where I wasn't even involved. I just saw it from the outside because it was a portfolio company or a company that I was working with, was accompanied by a strategic move towards PLG. And the idea here is that the company that was previously not sure, like, how do we sell this thing? It's kind of a SaaS thing, but it's also not necessarily SaaS. What are we doing here? Was breaking up their product into more of a PLG motion that was then be upsold into more enterprise or like bigger accounts. And with that, obviously, came a move towards a little bit of a different pricing with kind of a over-the-counter credit card pricing for single movers, single users, and then more enterprise pricing. This whole thing, people were really scared of because they were like, well, we can't sell the thing we've sold before for $500 now for 50. But it was beautifully executed. And I'm still convinced to this day that that company really went very well, by the way, after. But I'm still convinced to this day that actually one of the major things, one of the major levers of the CEO would accredit the growth to PLG. I'm not sure it was actually PLG or the marketing motion about that and the channels and all that. I'm pretty sure it was the pricing. Yeah. Because what actually happened was that the product was set up in such a way that there was very clearly distinct packages where one was so small and so useful, so fast, with time to value short, that it was a $50 a month thing. Credit card, let's get it done. And then the other thing was more of a, okay, but now we need to make it bigger. We need to make it 500, 1,000 per seat, get 20 seats per customer. And now all of a sudden we're talking 20K. Yeah. And there was both of these realities within the same product that they had built. And the way that they did it was the only way to really replicate this. And that was by pricing also differently.
Let's stop it here. Raul, thank you so much. I hope everyone got some really good insights, and yes, you should definitely look at your pricing a little bit more. Maybe send this episode to your CEO or CRO to kind of understand what's going on. And otherwise, see you next time. And thanks, Raul.
See you, everyone.